My world turned upside down in an instant when my husband's cold voice cut through the phone. "Why do you always collapse when I need you?" he snapped, as if he didn't care that I had been rushed to the hospital. I was scared for our unborn child, but he only cared about himself. "We're here, hungry, waiting for your awful cooking, and you're just relaxing in the hospital," he complained. Then, without any concern, he said he'd had enough and was going out to eat with his parents, leaving me to find my own way home. His anger filled me with fear. He blamed me as if I had gotten sick on purpose. All I wanted was to protect my baby. Before all this, I was a passionate cosmetic salesperson, winning awards and loving my job. When I met my husband, it felt like a fairy tale, and we quickly got married. I was overjoyed to find out I was pregnant, but to keep my baby safe, I had to quit my job to avoid a miscarriage. At first, my husband was supportive, but as time went on, he became frustrated. Simple things became hard for me, but he had no patience. "Where's my lunch?" he'd demand, only to scoff when I gave him a simple sandwich because strong smells made me sick. "Pregnancy isn't an illness," he'd say, brushing off my struggles and leaving me to do everything alone. He stopped coming to doctor's visits and refused to help with chores. Our home, once filled with love, now felt like a battlefield. I was exhausted, trying to take care of myself and my baby while hoping things would get better. I told myself he was just stressed. He had been mentoring someone new at work, which made him more irritable. Maybe when the baby came, things would get better. "It'll be okay," I whispered to my belly, trying to stay hopeful. But things only got worse. His parents started dropping by unannounced, criticizing the house and questioning how we'd manage with a baby. They expected me to serve them food immediately, and when I wasn't prepared, they were disappointed. My husband always sided with them, never defending me. One day, they sent me out to buy groceries while I was heavily pregnant. The strain was too much. I collapsed. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. The doctors said I had fainted from exhaustion, but thankfully, my baby was safe. They told me I needed to rest for a few days. I saw missed calls from my husband and thought he might finally be worried, but when I called back, his voice was cold. "Where have you been?" he snapped. "I passed out at the store and was taken to the hospital," I explained. "They put me on 4 fluids and want me to stay for observation." But he didn't care. "You collapsed, and I'm supposed to care? Why didn't you answer when I called? You're so slow." His words hurt deeply. "Please stop yelling. It's not good for the baby," I pleaded. But he didn't stop. "We're here starving, waiting for your terrible cooking, and you're just taking it easy in the hospital." He made it clear he didn't care about me or the baby. He was going out with his parents and leaving me alone. His words were too much to bear, so I ended the call, feeling completely alone. Back in my hospital room, tears streamed down my face. Then, a familiar voice interrupted my sorrow. "Are you okay?" I looked up and saw Helen, a customer I had once helped when I worked in cosmetics. She handed me a towel, and I was flooded with relief. "Helen, it's really you. I'm so glad you remember me." Helen had once been a woman struggling with confidence after a tough divorce. I had helped her rediscover her self-esteem through makeup, and we had grown close. But years ago, she suddenly stopped coming, and I had always wondered what happened to her. Now, here she was, right when I needed kindness the most. "I was looking for you," Helen admitted. "I went to your old workplace, but they said you left." She explained that she had been working overseas but recently returned. Ironically, she had ended up in the hospital too, with early-stage appendicitis. But if I were still abroad, the treatment would have been so expensive. "In a way, I'm glad it happened here," she laughed. Her warm presence lifted my spirits, and we started reminiscing about old times. Then, with a kind smile, she asked, "You don't have to tell me, but I saw you crying earlier. What happened?" I trusted Helen, so I told her everything, about my husband, his family, and my fears for my baby. "I'm really worried about bringing my child into this environment, afraid they'll be treated the same way," I admitted. Helen listened, her expression filled with understanding. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I thought. I felt completely alone and overwhelmed, especially since I had lost my job. The idea of living on my own, let alone raising a child, was scary. Then, to my surprise, Helen offered to help. "I have an apartment you can use," Helen said kindly. "It's a small 2-bedroom with a private bathroom, soundproof walls, and it's in a safe neighborhood near supermarkets and a police station. You don't need to pay a deposit now. You can start paying rent when you're settled. It's a really good deal." What do you think? I laughed in disbelief and asked, "Are you sure you can offer it at such a good rate?" "Absolutely," she replied. "I trust you, and I believe in supporting one another. You're more than welcome to stay." Grateful for her kindness, I accepted her offer. Soon after the doctors cleared me to leave the hospital, I moved right into the apartment Helen had arranged for me over the phone. I didn't go back to the home I once shared with my husband, although I worried about not paying rent right away. Helen reassured me with a laugh. Later, during my husband's work hours, I snuck back to our shared home to collect my few belongings. The house felt empty, much like how I felt inside. Helen didn't stop helping me. She introduced me to a lawyer who had helped her in the past, which made my decision to divorce even stronger. One day, after a hospital visit, I stepped outside and found my husband waiting. I panicked and tried to leave, but he grabbed my arm and questioned me about the lawyer and our living situation. I insisted that any talk about the divorce, compensation, or child support should go through the lawyer. He refused to listen and tried to force me to return home. Just then, a young woman named Rebecca stepped in. She knew my husband, George, and immediately protected me. Rebecca warned him, even threatening to call the police if he didn't let go. When he heard that, George got scared and left quickly. Rebecca then helped me and called a taxi to take me home. I was surprised to learn that I lived just a floor below hers. They were my new neighbor. Rebecca turned out to be a new employee at my husband's workplace. She had reported his rude behavior at work, and this led to his removal as her mentor. George was known for making insensitive comments about issues like menstruation and marriage. Rebecca explained that his bad behavior was a problem at work, and I knew it was also the case at home. Within 3 weeks, Rebecca and I became good friends. We shared dinners, and she told me that George had been transferred to another company after many complaints. I later learned that Rebecca was Helen's daughter. Helen, a successful businesswoman, managed several properties, including the apartment I was staying in. George had even boasted about handling Helen's account, but his behavior had forced Helen to push for his transfer. Helen advised me not to give in to any of George's attempts at sympathy and to stay firm with my decision to divorce. Eventually, George tried to contact me through the lawyer, apologizing and saying he missed me, but I stayed determined. With Helen's support, George agreed to the divorce and the terms for child support and damages. Soon after the divorce, my next challenge came from my in-laws. My father-in-law, excited about having a grandson, tried to control everything. One day, as I was leaving, he grabbed my arm and demanded I hand over my baby, calling the child the family's heir. I tried to break free, but his grip was strong. At that moment, a firm voice shouted for him to let go. Rebecca had come to help. Using her judo skills, she quickly threw him aside. She told him off for interfering in my life and defending my right to start over. Soon, the police arrived because Rebecca had called them. My mother-in-law, who had been waiting in the car, quietly watched as the police took my father-in-law away. Later, my mother-in-law decided to divorce him and move to the countryside to start a fresh life. George even tried to convince his mother to let him go with her, but she refused. Through the lawyer, my mother-in-law apologized to me and left some money as a sign of goodwill. I was surprised by her support but grateful. After finalizing the divorce, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. My mother-in-law settled in the countryside, choosing a simpler life. When my father-in-law was released, he found that the house was gone, demolished by my mother-in-law before she left. He ended up moving in with George, which led to more problems, and eventually, George had to resign because of his damaged reputation. Despite everything, child support payments continued to come, likely managed by Helen and the lawyer. Rebecca earned recognition at work and became a project leader, while Helen's projects, including housing for women and foreigners, flourished. Once my son was older, I planned to return to work. In fact, Helen even offered me a job at a new high-end cosmetics store she was opening. Helen continued to support me and treated my son as if he were her own grandchild. Rebecca also made time to visit us. Both women reminded me of the strength and kindness that had helped me through the toughest times. I was determined to be as strong and protective of my son as they had been for me. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more great stories. Don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. See you next time, and take care.